Okay, team, are you ready? Make sure to start your tracker. Let's go. Hey, team, welcome to today's 25-minute walk class. I'm Natalie, and I'm going to be your team leader for today's class. We're going to combine some fun trivia games and walking today to help you kind of stay motivated, keep you entertained, and make sure you get a good workout. All right, let's start off with a nice, easy pace. We're going to walk for a few minutes to get warmed up before diving into our trivia game. As we walk, I'm going to ask you a series of trivia questions, and you're going to have a few seconds to think about it before answering. If you are here during the premiere of this class, you are welcome to comment below and put in what you think the answer is. Let's keep score and see who can get the most trivia questions right today. Today's trivia game has a vintage flair to it. I'm going to ask you if you can figure out what decade these different things that have evolved throughout our history, what decade they were created in, invented in, when they launched, and let's see how many of these you can get right. Here's the first question. In what decade was the Walkman introduced? Was it in the 1970s, 90s, or 80s? In what decade was the Walkman introduced? The 70s, the 90s, or the 80s? Comment below if you have a guess. And the answer is A. The Walkman was a portable cassette tape player that revolutionized the way people listen to music. Introduced by Sony in 1979, the Walkman allowed users to carry their music with them on the go, which was a major technological leap at the time. Before the Walkman, people typically listened to music at home using large stereos or on car radios, so the ability to have a personal portable music player was groundbreaking. Listen to some other things that really created a lot of cultural impact at that time. The Walkman was one of the first devices to offer truly personal, portable music. It marked the start of an era where people could create their own soundtrack for their daily lives. Can you imagine the difference between that and when we would have to listen to the radio and just wait for our favorite song to come on? Another big thing, and this is huge, it was a fitness and travel companion. It became a staple for joggers and travelers, making music available during workouts or on commutes. Another big thing, owning a Walkman became a cultural trend more into the 1980s. So my husband tells me that this was a trick question because 1979 is almost 1980, and really the Walkman was the most popular during the early 1980s. As this evolved, we get into a bunch of other things that were created, like Discmans, and eventually digital files like MP3s that you would get on iPods, which we will talk about a little bit later on in this game, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Here is question number 2. In what decade was the first electronic TV invented? Was it in the 20s, the 40s, or the 30s? Make sure to comment below and let us know what your guess is. And the answer is A, in the 1920s. So, the actual first electronic television was introduced in 1927 by, I might be mispronouncing it, but Philo Farnsworth. Farnsworth's design was the first fully electronic television system, which was extremely different than the earlier mechanical kind of system they had in place for those earlier kind of TVs. His work laid the foundation for modern television technology. Now, the evolution of electronic TVs has been vast over the years. And think about what those first TVs looked like and what we have today. All right, here is the next question. In what decade was the first mobile phone call made? So not the invention of the phone, but when was the very first mobile phone call made? Was it in the 90s, the 70s, or the 80s? Comment below with your guess. And the answer is B, the 1970s. The first mobile phone call was actually made on April 3rd, 1973. The caller was Martin Cooper and the recipient was Joel Engel. The inventor of this brand new device at the time, a Motorola executive, Martin Cooper, he is the one credited for making the very first mobile phone call. He is often referred to as the father of the mobile phone. The device used to make this very first mobile phone call was a Motorola Dynatac 8000X, which was a prototype model. Now, this device was the first handheld mobile phone and was very large by today's standards, weighing 2.5 pounds and measuring 10 inches in length. The call details went like this. Cooper made the very first call while walking down a New York City street. He called Joel Engel, the head of Bell Labs' rival team, to inform him about the breakthrough. The call was made to demonstrate the feasibility and functionality of mobile phone technology. Once again, another technological breakthrough. This call marked the beginning of the mobile telecommunications era, transitioning from car phones and large bulky devices to portable personal mobile phones. The Motorola Dynatac 8000X was officially released to the public in 1983, about a decade after that very first call, making it the first commercially available mobile phone. That's so interesting. It took 10 years for them to go from the very first mobile phone call to having an actual commercially available phone on the market, mobile phone on the market. What I'm really happy about is that we have access to these phones today, because I know for many of you that is how you are participating in today's walk class. So you can be outside and listening in and taking this amazing trivia game, walk class blend with me. This next question is a perfect follow-up. In what decade was the very first text message sent? Was it the 1990s, the 2000s, or the 1980s? Comment below. The very first text message was sent in the 1990s. Here's a little bit more information about that. The first text message ever sent is another important milestone in communication history. This occurred on December 3rd, 1992. The sender was Neil Papworth and the recipient was Richard Jarvis. The sender, Neil Papworth, was a software engineer at Sema Group, a company that developed software for Vodafone. Not sure what that is. Do you? You know what that is? This is my favorite part. Do you want to know what the text was that was sent with that very first text message? I love this. It was Merry Christmas. The message was sent from a computer, not a mobile phone. So the very first text message ever sent was actually from a computer. The first mobile phones capable of sending text messages were not available until later. Okay, this next one is quite a throwback. When was the typewriter invented? 1850s, 1860s, or 1840s? What do you think? When was the very first typewriter invented? And the answer is B, the 1860s. The inventor of the very first typewriter was Christopher Latham Sholes, and the first successful patent application for a typewriter was filed in 1868. Sholes, along with his colleagues Samuel W. Soleil and Carlos Glidden, I think that's how you pronounce it, developed an early typewriter prototype in 1867. This machine was known as the Sholes and Glidden typewriter, or more commonly known as Remington No. 1, after its manufacturer E. Remington and Sons. The Sholes and Glidden typewriter had a QWERTY keyboard layout, which is still used in modern keyboards today. It used a system of hammers that struck an inked ribbon to imprint the letters onto paper. And we have reached the halfway point of today's class, so if you are going to head back to your starting point, now's the perfect time for you to turn around. We are also at the halfway point of today's game. How many points do you have so far? Have you gotten any right? Have you gotten all of them right? Comment below and let me know. We have about 5 more questions in this last half of our game. And for question number 6, in what decade was the first VHS format launched? Was it the 1980s, the 60s, or the 70s? In what decade was the first VHS format launched? The answer is C, the 1970s. The first VHS, or Video Home System format, became dominant technology for home video recording and playback, and this has a notable history. The inventor is the Japan Victor Company, and the date it was introduced was September 9th, 1976. The VHS format was developed by JVC in response to the need for a consumer-friendly video recording system. It was designed to be more affordable and accessible compared to other competing formats at the time. The features of this VHS format used magnetic tape enclosed in a plastic cartridge. It allowed users to record television broadcasts and play back pre-recorded videotapes. The standard VHS tape could hold up to 120 minutes of video in standard play mode. In what decade were alkaline batteries first introduced? 1950s, 1960s, or 1970s? In what decade were alkaline batteries first introduced? Alkaline batteries were first introduced in the 1950s, so our answer is A. Alkaline batteries were invented by Louis Urey, a Canadian engineer working for the Ever Ready Battery Company. That company is now known as Energizer. The primary goal was to create longer-lasting alternatives to the zinc-carbon batteries that were prevalent at the time. The very first breakthrough for these batteries was in 1959. So this again was very close to being a trick question because it was so close to 1960. He combined manganese dioxide and powdered zinc in an alkaline electrolyte, which is potassium hydroxide, instead of the acidic electrolyte used in zinc-carbon batteries. This resulted in that much longer lasting battery that we use today. Now, I do want to say that alkaline batteries were first commercialized in the 1960s. So Eveready and now Energizer and Duracell were the first ones to bring it to the market. So I guess maybe it could be the 1960s. If you did A or B, you're right. Let's just move on. Okay, for our next question, in what decade did string Christmas lights become commonly used for home decorations? The 1920s, 1910s, or 1930s? I like this question because I love Christmas lights. So what do you think? And the answer is A, the 1920s. Even though the first electric Christmas tree was introduced in the 1800s, the string Christmas lights that we put on the interior and exterior of our houses actually became more commonly used in the 1920s. Before this, people often used candles to light their Christmas trees, which was a significant fire hazard. So, by the 1920s, people began to use string lights for decorating exteriors of their homes, adding lights to trees and bushes outdoors, in addition to indoor Christmas trees. I'm really impressed that it has been 100 years, more than 100 years, that we have been decorating indoors and outdoors with lights for Christmas. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? To think that a tradition has lasted this long. And really, it hasn't necessarily gone away. If anything, it's only just embellished to insane amounts. If you consider some of the places that we have that have like the Christmas light contest, things like that, it's pretty exciting. I love that time of year. I'm very excited about the fall, but I really love Christmas. Question number 9. In what decade was the first programmable, oh my gosh, digital computer invented? 1950s, 1940s, or 1960s? In what decade was the first programmable digital computer invented? Programmable is a hard word. I didn't expect it to be hard. And the answer is B, the 1940s. The inventor of this programmable computer was Conrad Zuse. It's Z-U-S-E, so I think Zeus. A German engineer developed the Z3, which is often regarded as the first fully operational programmable automatic digital computer. This computer was completed in 1941 and is considered the first working programmable fully automatic computer. The Z3 was used for engineering calculations, particularly in aerodynamics. Interesting. And for our final trivia question for today, in what decade was the first iPod created? The 1990s, the 2000s, or the 1980s? In what decade was the first iPod created? Remember these iPods? I loved this little thing where you could just clip it right to your shirt and go. It's actually, even though I love my smartphone, super happy to have it, I will say it was so much easier when you could just clip something to the side. Although it probably wasn't as safe because you didn't have your phone with you. So, there's always improvements and everything like that. If I could get a phone-like thing that's that small, and I'm not talking about my watch because my watch is not that reliable when it comes to having a good connection, I would love it. And the answer is B, in the 2000s. The very first iPod was introduced on October 23rd, 2001 by Steve Jobs. This featured a 5 GB hard drive capable of holding 1,000 songs, a mechanical scroll wheel, and a FireWire connection for faster data transfers. The first iPod was a breakthrough in portable music, offering a sleek, pocket-sized design and easy access to large music libraries. That's crazy to think that started out at 5 GB and now I need a terabyte of gig on my computer to hold everything that I want on it. I hope that you've enjoyed today's class. I sure have. It is so lovely being back to our fun interactive walks. Please make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel, subscribe. Not only do we have a variety of amazing walk and other fitness classes here on YouTube, but if you head on over to our website at thenextfitnessthing.com, you will be able to see several other free classes as well as some membership options. So make sure you check out that link. It is in the description box below, and we hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful weekend, team. I look forward to seeing you again next time.